really empowered. I think.
Okay.
But there's one question I don't know the answer to,
That's what a committee's for.
so that's what we're,
And we get a few points. So,
and then we should get some points, yeah. But yeah, this is something that we've already. Okay, so we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance first instead of last this time. Okie dokie. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Excellent. Okay, pledge, check.
Done.
We'll take attendance. We have Sarah Bayer, Rosalind Stengel, Peter Monis,
Phil.
Oh my
That's
God.
right.
Why did I write Peter? I'm such a
I don't know.
dodo.
That's all right.
started with a P.
You are Phil. Sorry, Phil. And me, Sophie. We can, I guess, approve the meeting minutes from last month. I don't know if anyone read through them. They were very brief. Obviously, it was our first meeting, but I think we should approve them. Does anyone want to make a motion?
Motion to approve. Second that.
Thank you, Phil. And who seconds?
Seconds.
Sarah seconds. Beautiful. And just so we're all on the same page, Geesey did resign from the Housing Smart Committee. She decided that she had a few too many commitments, so we respect Geesey's decision, and she does so much for this community in so many different ways. So if you're watching, Geesey, we love you. And let this be another call and reminder that we would really love for more people to join us in this committee. We would like to see more voices represented at the meetings and in this work. And so if you know somebody, you can nominate them to us. But we'd really love people who have a sense of what our housing crisis looks like here and how we could potentially work within the county system and roadmap to accomplish things for our community. So please come join us. We meet the fourth Mondays of every month here at 7 p.m. Okie dokie. I did want to throw out a term of the day for our audience, which I think probably today we'll discuss what an accessory dwelling unit is. And Sarah, you sent around that great planning.org page about it. So I thought if it comes up later, cool, we can all have a context more of what it is. And also maybe we try and do a term of the day, or I guess it's the month, each time we meet, so we can kind of do a little bit of education in the process. So I'll read this real quick. But an ADU, or an accessory dwelling unit, is a smaller independent residential dwelling unit located on the same lot as a standalone single-family home. ADUs go by many different names throughout the United States, including accessory apartments, secondary suites, and granny flats, or mother-in-law apartment. ADUs can be converted portions of an existing home, and additions to new or existing homes, or new standalone accessory structures, or converted portions of existing standalone accessory structures. So it doesn't have to be a totally separate structure. It could be something from within the house, inside the house. But we're going to talk a little bit about ADUs today, but definitely over time we're going to probably talk a lot about them as we've identified them as an area of growth for our housing stock. But yeah, now hopefully everyone out there knows what an ADU is. So, rather than going straight into a broader conversation about ADUs, I wanted to look at this action item from the Housing Smart Communities Initiative. One of the action items for us to, gain points is the short-term rental STR regulations, which is something that Shandaken has, and we've recently passed. So on the Ulster County, New York website, where you can go to hsci.ulstercountynY.gov, which is where all the details of the program exist. They have a form for us to fill out for the short-term regulations to get our points going. So I don't know if everyone has thoroughly familiarized themselves with our short-term, our STR laws. The majority of this form is pretty easy to complete, and I think I know from reading our law that we have these items in place, as they are generally asked in a yes or no format. But I did want to bring question number 2 to the attention of our committee to discuss. But for the purpose of our at-home audience, maybe we'll just, I'll just read through the questions really quickly, if that's all right with everybody. The description text prior to the form. This action focuses on developing and adopting regulations that effectively limit the number of short-term rentals, STRs, in the municipality and promote increases in the number of houses being placed in the long-term rental market as well as for purchase. Okay, so question number 1, does the regulation limit short-term rentals to owner-occupied units? So the one thing that we should discuss is it doesn't, we basically have our, oh, did that go on? Yeah. The red, if the red is on, oh yeah, yours isn't going on.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So, according to our law, basically, there are owner-occupied units and there are non-owner-occupied or non-resident units, STRs. So this question for me was also a little tricky, I forgot to mention, because we do limit the number of non-owner occupied, as in people who are just renting it, they don't live there at all, or they don't live there. I think there's like a definition.
No, the limitations are for non-residents. There is a limitation. If you are a resident within the town, you can have as many short-term rentals as you so desire. So the answer to this theoretically would be no.
That's what I thought. Because the question is worded in such a way, like, we have a limit on a type of
Right,
STR.
it's a qualified law, okay?
So I can certainly bring that question to Kai and see, and like present to him the language of our law and kind of pose it to him a little bit, because it's not like we don't have any limitations, but it probably would be incorrect to select yes for this.
A different,
Qualifier.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so then rather than submit this form today, we're just going to go through the form together, but as we go, we can identify our questions. And then I'm happy to kind of submit this outside of the meeting room, if that's all right with everyone. Question number 2 relates to question number 1, because as you see, it starts with the word or. So either does the regulation limit short-term rentals to owner occupied, as in question 1, or does the regulation place a limit on the number of STR units permitted in the municipality, 2% or less of all housing units in the community? Just like,
I think also technically no,
It is a no.
because it's based on the number of permits that are issued.
Again, there is a limit as for non-resident,
Yeah.
and then a resident, so the answer to this is no.
Well, I think there's also a limited number of resident
No.
permits, no? I'm
No, it's an
wrong?
open,
Oh,
it's
okay.
an open law, an open item on that one. And this goes back to a conversation in May of 2022, prior to the approval of the
Right.
short-term rental reg.
and Phil, were you involved in the process of the STR law?
I was not involved in the process.
Okay.
I am just very familiar.
No, yes, because there was a committee,
There
so I
was a
wasn't sure if
committee,
you were part of
yes.
that.
We had some residents on that committee as well as non-residents. I think there was a town board member involved in it also. The building inspector, Howie McGowan, was also involved in it prior to its disbandment, which I
Okay.
think probably happened probably in 2021.
I see. Okay, so, the questions regarding how we are actually limiting the number of STRs, which these questions are getting at in part, is part of our law that we need to both better understand as a whole, but also get the county via Kai to kind of give
Yeah.
us a little bit.
Sophie,
of
can we go back to number
guidance.
2 a second?
Of course.
It says 2% or less of all housing in the community.
Mm-hmm.
What is the number of dwellings in the town of Shandaken?
I know that Kai knows that number.
Okay.
I'm sure somebody in
Yeah.
our town knows the number.
I'm
but
sure,
I don't know
I'm
the number.
sure Joyce probably does know the number.
I know that the limit given to the number of non-resident was 150, correct? Of STR licenses. I
I think it's
was,
250.
Yeah, I think it
Is
was
it
higher. And then I
250?
think they
250.
bumped it by like 4 or something and they gave special
Yes.
permission. Yeah.
in the what?
There were 4 people who were like pretty pleased, can we still have one?
Oh, okay.
So it's, I think, 4
So-
over.
Yeah, and there are,
Plus 4, whatever it is.
there is an ownership criteria for this also. You have to be an owner for 1 year
Yes.
prior to applying for a short-term rental.
Right.
Okay.
You bring up a good point though, Phil. I think we should figure out how many units we have in town. I think that's something we should all know.
Yes.
It's an important figure.
I mean, I think the number is about 3,500. I may be off.
That sounds about right. The population is about 3,000, I believe.
If the population is 3,000, then that number of how, well, you have part-time rentals also.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of,
Yeah.
yeah.
Specs
I
on
did
our
have that
housing
number
spec.
too.
Yeah.
Well, we know that doing a full inventory is to come, but yes, just existing
But a
numbers
preliminary,
would be
yeah.
good, yeah. Okay, so we know we're looking into and getting more guidance for numbers 1 and 2. Number 3, does the regulation require STR operators to register the STR unit through a municipal registration process? Yes.
It's an emphatic yes.
Number 4, does the regulation require STR operators to pay a fee to cover the cost of administration? Yes.
Does it?
Yes, I think so. I think there's a fee to
Is it just, there is a fee?
Yeah.
Is it just for the administration?
I'm not sure what it goes towards.
I don't know that it has to be solely for the administrative cost. You're
Yeah.
meaning like a line item distinct from the actual
Correct.
license fee? I mean, this just says, does it require them to pay a fee to cover the cost? Meaning, is there a fee at all?
There is a fee.
Is how I read it. There is a fee.
I mean, I'm under the impression that the answer on number 4 would be yes.
Yes. Is there any other comments on number 4?
Hopefully it's a yes.
I think it's yes.
I'm,
I believe there's a fee to apply and then another annual fee to maintain your.
To-
There is an
license.
annual fee, it's the same fee every year.
Yes.
and it's different for,
Yeah, and it depends on your status. Of,
Yeah.
Right, residents, there's a non-resident fee and a resident fee.
right. Number 5, does the regulation require that the STR units are inspected for safety? This is a yes.
Yes.
It gives us a field to provide a link to all documents related to this action, which I think in our case would be the law and/or the site that the STR activity on our website, on the town website is on. Because it says a link or links to all documents, so those meeting notes and whatnot. And then the final question, is there anything else you'd like to share about your short-term rental regulations? Is there any other mechanism you've put in the regulation to help with monitoring and compliance? I mean, I do think the 1 year waiting period, or whatever it is referred to, is a good aspect of the regulation.
And I think that our town distinguishes between residents and non-residents is not outlined in here, but I think relevant.
Yeah, maybe that is more pertinent than these questions are giving it credit for. Because for the non-resident, is the limit just one? Like,
No,
are you familiar
no,
with?
definitively not.
And do we know what the limit is?
There is not a limit unless there is the 250, once you're over the 250, you're not eligible anymore because you're a non-resident and they're
Maxed out.
maxed out or they're over the max. Yes, Roz, you said it's over, they're 4 over.
I think I remember them passing a resolution for 4 more, but maybe it's more since then. I don't watch every single meeting.
Okay. So, in the interest of time, are there any other notes or questions about this? These were all the questions. So this is just one example of, part of the process, but, there's obviously, there could be any other conversations with the county prior to filling out, so, yeah.
The Housing Smart Communities
Mhm.
webinar on this, so they, I guess, had 8 months ago, said there's 10% of all housing units in Ulster County are short-term rentals.
10%,
So I'm curious about how we compare to the.
to the 10%, yeah.
I mean, that's something you have to look at the breakdowns on. I think when you're talking about Ulster County, I mean, you've got town of Shandaken, it's probably going to be higher.
Yeah.
Just because of the demographics here. I can't see that being the case down in Kingston, but Lord knows.
Yeah.
Town of Woodstock, I know, has a limitation, as does town of Olive now also. Okay, I know there's a waiting list in the town of Woodstock. Don't know what the story is in Hardenburg.
Yeah, I mean.
Or Denning,
No.
or Plattekill, or,
Yeah.
Lord knows where.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're not gonna fulfill the action today, and that's fine.
I still feel accomplished.
But we feel good about the questions that we've come up with, and, so I'll note down here that, my action item is to follow up with Kai and do a review with him and kind of check in on some of these aspects and see kind of what the process is, because obviously laws that were, designed to do something for our town and the way that they fit in with the community initiative here, I think there's some finagling, either on the county side, or if we have to finagle things in our law or make recommendations. I know there was a long, arduous process to put the STR law together in our town, so it's not any insinuation of, undermining it or anything, but just sort of identifying what our goals are with them.
I mean, we're looking at a situation in Ulster County as well as the entire country at this point. It's not just short-term rentals. There is a housing shortage no matter where we go. You pick the town, and there's a housing shortage. Has short-term rentals increased it? Probably. It's the affordable housing criteria that is difficult. Okay, it has to be a blend. And
I don't disagree.
I was discussing this with somebody down in New Jersey a couple of weeks ago. And now he's been a mayor in a town probably for about 14 or 15 years. And he said, I want a blend of houses in my community. I want a blend of condominiums. I want a blend of rentals. I want single-family dwellings. I want two-family dwellings. I want affordable housing for workers. Otherwise, we are going to isolate a community. Okay. And it was a very insightful conversation that I had with him on this, and it struck a chord.
Yeah,
That makes
diverse,
perfect sense.
diverse
Yeah.
housing
Yes,
stock.
housing. When you said there's a shortage of housing, I wanted to clarify it a little bit. There's like the missing middle. We have a lot of
Huge missing middle.
very expensive housing.
Well,
I mean, we're still missing affordable housing at the lower AMIs, but definitely missing middle.
you know, and this is a situation, how do we create affordable housing?
Yeah.
How can that be done? And what constitutes affordable?
Yeah.
Well, there's like formulas for that kind of stuff,
And
right?
it's,
Yeah.
yes, but you look, I mean, the housing costs in the town of Shandaken over the last, or in Ulster County, have increased 64% over the last 5 years. And wages have not. So we're getting a huge disparity, and that disparity has gone from here to there now. So it's,
Yeah, it's emblematic of bigger
is.
things, and while SDRs are not the only, like, this silver bullet for us, we are going to proceed with it in some part so that we can get to these kind of bigger issues that are happening at the same time. So I had you next to do a Rubco thing, but maybe while we're talking about like
Sure, yeah.
our town, we can. So I did go to the comprehensive plan meeting it was July 10th, I think. And, you know, as we discussed at the last meeting, they're going through and redoing the town's comprehensive plan, which wasn't done since 2005. And this is in an effort to like refresh and readdress issues that are, some are similar, some have evolved a lot in our town, and certainly housing was something of discussion in 2005. And there's some language in here that are some words I printed for us from that, from a section titled Shandaken Tomorrow, which titles like future needs and also contains italicized, oh no, that's in the other. Where's this one? But basically, we have an opportunity to collaborate. Where the committee is currently is they are still like really going through the old plan bit by bit. So we haven't necessarily missed anything. And I think, you know, what they're doing at the moment is sort of like looking at this text and determining how they want to update it for 2023 and beyond. So I think it would make sense for us to also independently, this will be part of our all of our homework again, like read through this section specifically. If you want to access the full comp plan, it's linked in our notes here, but, you know, kind of looking at this section titled Future Needs, like we are in the future of when this was written, and we could kind of consider how the language of this, because it's not just what you write, it's also how you write it. And so we want to be part of that process with them, I think, and they are more than welcoming to have our help because they have so many other sections also to do. So I think we can play a helpful role in what is an important aspect. And so I printed this so we can like mark it up. We don't need to be like too digital about it unless anyone wants to, but I think we should come back to our next meeting and like discuss this in particular. And I want us to think about it with the lens of zoning, with the lens of something like ADUs, because like that's the chain reaction that we can help kickstart. Like we can't really go directly to ADUs as a broader solution until we as a town update our zoning codes that would allow for certain things that currently are not allowed, because in a previous era, like single family homes were the norm and that was what was desired. And so probably when this code was written, there was less density of population and people had their own home and that was affordable for them and that era. And now we're in a new era. We have, you know, we're hoping to grow back our population here, but we'll probably have more people than we had 100 years ago. And we need to help inform the comp plan, which will inform any potential zoning updates, to allow for multifamily on one property, on something that is currently zoned only as a single family. So that's like the rough outline of the order of operations is like as pertaining to the comp plan, but then we have our like continuing to backtrack is we have our resources from the county, which when looking at upzoning, as they call it, then we are able to kind of like bring additional resources to that process. I, you know, have never changed a zoning law, but, you know, we're not changing it. We're trying to give the justification, the data, the information. Like, we want to make the housing section of the comp plan as robust as possible in referencing, like, how many ADUs we think our town can and should support, or how do we, like, in what way are we going to be able to increase the housing stock? Like, in what percentage, how many number of units do we think we even need additionally in order to, you know, like you were saying before, Phil, like create this diversity that helps us attract the people that we want to come here. So that's just framing it, but let's discuss. I mean, does that make sense? Is there other ideas?
That makes a lot of sense. So, you know, I think our takeaway from last meeting was kind of to come back to this meeting with proposals from that list of what we would support.
Yeah.
And ADUs seem like a really great starting point for us because they provide income for people who own property. You can have multi-generational, you know, housing scenarios. It's referred to as a gentle density, so it's not totally rezoning. And there's a great document by Enterprise Community Partners, which advocates for affordable housing and sustainable housing. I'll send around this document that kind of lays out all the barriers that could exist in regulations, zoning, and finance to spur this development of this kind of housing. And a lot of the regulatory challenges are they have to go through discretionary zoning review process because it's, as you said, single family. So adds uncertainty. And already if you're a single family homeowner, and we're trying to help people that are in the lower income brackets to get more income and be more stable, that uncertainty kind of just knocks them out of the market pretty quickly. There are barriers to official leasing issues to non-family members on your single family, owner occupancy requirements, parking requirements, setbacks, lot size minimums, utility site connection fees and that kind of thing, and design standards. So when reviewing all that, I was thinking if we had a consultant to help us advise on go through our zoning code and figure out what our barriers are, and then we can put together. I mean, we could do that ourselves a little bit, but a consultant could really do that for real.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be a pretty straightforward document. They can also create diagrams to show it's possible, and also do the calculation you mentioned of how many are possible within our current zoning lot sizes and number of lot sizes.
One of the issues that has come across in conversations that I've had with people here in town regarding long-term rental and short-term rental is they're worried about delinquencies. There probably should be a caveat in there regarding the delinquencies. They may want to think about putting something in for veterans. Okay? They're forgotten. Okay? And it is potential labor pool down the road, which will stimulate growth in the community. Important.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's my addition to that.
And where do you think those points need to be reflected?
In the entire proposal as we go forward.
As part of what, for the ADUs
For the
or?
accessory dwelling units or
Yeah.
principal housing in general.
Yeah. Well, I think, what,
We need to grow a community here.
yeah, I think it's up to us to sort of paint the picture that you're starting to illustrate. And I think the comp plan is also like the perfect place for that picture, because as you read this document, like, it is sort of aspirational. That doesn't mean it's not possible, but like, it's really, we're trying to picture the community that we want to live in and present that to our town officials and say, this is what we want and we want to make this happen. And so I think, like, in addition to housing, one thing that we can workshop is also language on like all the other things that sort of touch housing and the things that we think housing alone cannot solve, right? Like something that you're touching on that I think we've discussed in other contexts is like, we have really no public transportation. Like, it's very limited. It's not like just for our town where the people and the buses are actually here and not relying on people coming and commuting from really far away. And also like walkability and having all the resources in the hamlets, but also having community networks that help get people to the resources if they can't get themselves there. So I do think there's a lot.
There's a lot to it.
There's a lot that it touches. And so I agree, like, maybe that's a few lines that we want to craft together and then, attach on or include with things that we're talking about that are very housing, niche, and how we think that can actually play out nuts and bolts wise. But, in painting the picture, it's also acknowledging that like housing is not the only thing, it's part of a really comprehensive
Extremely
plan.
comprehensive.
Comprehensive and overwhelming. But so yeah, thank you to our comprehensive planning committee for doing what they're doing. I totally agree, and I think what we should do is set up a call, and maybe it's the same call that we go over other stuff with Kai, but there's also, and maybe you're somebody who can give a first pass at this, given your experience, but like, I think there's a list of consultants that has already been provided to us. I think it's in our Google Drive, but if you want to give a look at that and see if you think like there is an agency or somebody in there that is appropriate for what we need.
Sure.
Because I don't know the timeline of trying to get anybody to work with us. I don't know if it's like we say we want somebody and the next day they're there, or, you know, it's like, okay, well, these people will free up in 3 months, or, and either way, if they're available to us, maybe the sooner we can engage with them, the better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just so I'm clear on kind of what we're
Yeah.
potentially proposing here, is the first phase hire a consultant to look at what we have, to figure out what's kind of in our way, and then the next step is proposing a section for the comprehensive plan to like enable that, and then look at the zoning code.
So, so there's a lot of overlap in all of the housing smart actions.
Yes.
And like, there's one that's just called like, figure out your game plan or whatever it's called. And it's very general. And part of that is like the housing inventory and stuff like that. But that's like over here on a general list. And that I think like, we're probably going to have to do some of that regardless
Right.
of whether that's like the one action we're focusing on at any given moment. But I do think that like the upzoning and the ADUs, since they are like really connected and prescient or timely or what for right now, given the comp plan, I do think those are those the two that we landed on last week?
Yeah, it is.
Because, and I mean,
You know-
by two being the recommendation that we don't try and like bite off more than we can chew.
It's plenty.
But they're very related, right?
Yeah.
Because we can't really do the ADU in its full capacity and oomph without also examining the zoning.
Yeah.
So we agree on that.
Yeah, to me, they're kind of one.
Yeah,
thing.
right. According to the county, it's like two separate things, but for us and our purposes of where we're at.
We are very unique here, okay?
Yes, we
Because
are.
we don't have a lot of building space available anymore, okay? There is a lot of land in the town of Shandaken that is owned by the state, or it's fallen into the watershed, New York City DEP, and that is basically gone. All right, and then we have grade issues, floodplain issues. You know, pick the problem, and it's certainly present here.
Yeah.
So,
But yeah, it's kind of a work with what we got
you know,
plan at the moment with those two linked, because it's sort of identifying like there is buildable land, but currently the law says you can't build it, or at least add to it, or add human beings and toilets to it, or, you know,
well, and then we have septic issues.
yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
because we
But-
fall within the watershed.
Right.
Right.
But this presents opportunities, I think,
does.
on the green building and sustainable building front that I think also put us in a unique position to take advantage of those innovations and make
Exactly.
sure that, like, if we're sort of off the grid in a lot of ways, like, can we lean into that? And, but I think, and that could be also its whole own thing, and like upgrading current and existing structures that are just not economical, not environmentally responsible.
But I am curious if there, like, if there are any opportunities to upzone and,
You think there's not?
I mean, I would suspect that there are a few, but I just,
There are modifications that can be made. However, you probably have to look at the septic situations that probably have to be modified. Okay, because a septic system is designed per bedroom.
yeah.
Okay. I mean, there are ways that they can adjust these things today, i.e. low flush toilets versus a conventional toilet.
Yeah,
That-
but it would make sense if a property's in trouble with those issues, that if they're in a flood zone, for example, upgrading their system and adding a little more density to it might be beneficial for everyone.
If it can be done,
If it can be,
okay, depending on where it falls within a floodplain.
yeah. And those locations, we could identify them.
I'm sure that
and
they can
reach
be
out to
identified
those.
very easily. They probably have, I mean, people have to pay flood insurance, okay? We know where the flood zones are. That's what they have flood maps for.
Are you saying that you think those are more of an opportunity than we think that they are, or less?
Possibly, I mean, because if they need investment,
Right.
then you can add one or two more units in that process, you know, if they're in trouble in any way with,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, in a flood zone and maybe have an older system and,
Yeah, and I mean, there are other and existing initiatives that, like we've identified before, that aren't necessarily reaching people who need them, and maybe there's opportunity to like connect the service that needs connecting and increase the like how many residents can be on that
Yeah.
lot. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Let me just look at my notes real quick. Okay, so let me just add something in here. As far as the so did that answer your question? Do you feel like you
Yeah, well enough.
I mean, we might like go down this road and engage with someone on the upzoning, and
Yeah,
like it may or may not present things that we can act on immediately with regard to ADU, but like, and we know that upon learning about what needs to change in our zoning, it doesn't necessarily change the zoning.
Right.
And that process is still a much longer ways away. But if we're sort of keeping up and keeping track with all the different aspects of our zoning as it pertains to housing, then we can continue having various conversations with people at not just the comp plan. We can
Right.
talk to people at zoning and planning and the town board. We can learn from our building inspectors and our tax assessors. You know, like
Yeah.
there's resources within our own town government that we can tap into and start, you know, because I'm sure if we went into like the zoning meeting next time and we're like, cool, so we're gonna change all, you know, no, like we have to kind of navigate through our own town just as much as we have to like with all of the county
right.
guidelines, is understanding like how we're going to even navigate that part of the process. Because just because we say we need something doesn't necessarily mean it will
Right.
be just like changed. So
If only. Yeah, I think I was just hoping for like a step one, we do these three things, and then we can do step two, and it's just not gonna look like that.
yes. Well, even in the outline and the timeline that the county kind of sets as
Yeah.
like an example, you know, it's like step 1 to 2 months. But like
Yeah.
step 1 also could take 6 months.
Yeah,
So it's not to assume everything's going to take longer, but it probably will take a little while. And
But it is an amazing opportunity that we're updating our comprehensive plan at the same time.
Yeah.
as this
Yes.
Housing committee.
that's true.
yes.
It's only been 18 years.
Yeah,
Right. We're ready. Okay, great. So we can obviously we'll talk about the comprehensive plan next month because we're all gonna get to know the housing section. I would also recommend kind of the first section where, and I didn't print this, so I'm sorry, but on the town website you can find it. There's essentially whatever the version is on our town website has comments on it.
That's a guess.
So, and those are comments from Ulster County Planning Board. And, the housing initiative that we're working on is through the planning board. So there are comments that are made in the first section of the comp plan that are written in italics. And I think there's definitely some interesting, notes made in the housing section, which is number 6. But, so I didn't print that again, I'm sorry, but I would recommend checking that out when you're reading the other pages. And the one thing I wanted to know before we move on, excuse me. Where'd it go? So sorry. Okay, so this was written as a comment in 2005. And it's like a general comment, but I just thought it was worth, just gonna read this.
Don't ask me how old I was in 2005.
I don't want to know. Okay. The county planning board is increasingly concerned about the growing disconnect between the cost of housing and the ability of local wage earners to afford a place to live. The community impacts associated with a gap in affordability are substantial. These include difficulty in attracting new businesses as well as labor availability for existing businesses. Transportation impacts associated with an increase in county-to-county commuting as families chase affordable housing or higher wages, difficulty for both young and old in establishing and maintaining residences within the county. In response, the board has repeatedly asked for recognition of the affordability issue in comprehensive plans and the use of regulatory techniques that encourage a healthy housing mix. So I thought that was interesting that they were commenting on our plan saying you need to acknowledge this. So that's just one note for us in particular, I think. And then I'll just quickly run through some action items that they wrote in as well. Develop a definition of affordable housing consistent with the needs of the community and connected to recognized standards and practices. Develop an assessment of housing needs to ensure that the community responds to its fair share of regional needs. Explore the toolbox of alternatives available to the community, including incentives, set-asides, tax credits, etc., and incorporate into policy and regulatory documents those appropriate to the town's needs and ability to implement. Develop a community leadership program that brings important stakeholders into the education and outreach and provides a forum to discuss the needs for a healthy housing mix as a community development tool. So those are sort of I read this as this was the planning board's kind of start of their Housing Smart Communities initiative, because a lot of those things are reflected in the action plan. But yeah, it's that was 2005 and we're kind of looking at the same things in 2023. But in 2005, we didn't have a group of people dedicated to housing. So I think with now the existence of the community initiative program that we're in, we can really take advantage of all the recommendations that they made before and help make an impact to the plan for this round. So I wanted to ask you before you report on the Rubco, when is the resource fair?
September 26th. I can
Sure.
put it in the notes. So I mentioned this last time, but there's a group of people in Pine Hill and Phoenicia putting on a housing resource fair. It'll be at the Pine Hill Community Center on September 26th from 5 to 8 p.m. And there'll be a whole bunch of different things, hopefully something for everyone. Both people seeking housing, people seeking to rent, to buy, to upgrade their homes, to add maybe solar or different kinds of heating and cooling systems. A whole bunch of different people will be there. Nothing's official yet, and there will be food. So, yeah, I'll probably update every month until that happens.
Great.
Actually, is that meeting the night of this committee?
No,
think it might
that's a Tuesday night.
Oh, great. Okay.
Woohoo!
Okay, one's Monday,
Yeah,
the 25th is Monday.
perfect.
Okay, Tuesday, not Monday. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, and we're definitely open to suggestions of agencies that should be present. We have a giant list of them, but if there's anything that comes to mind, please let me know.
Yeah. And do we have a table there?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, we have a table. So if you're available to just like chat with people about what kinds of resources are available to them, or maybe recruit them to the committee, whatever you want.
Right. Yeah.
I'll be there, so.
Great. Yeah, I'll be there.
Great.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
It's at the community center. Will Rubco be there?
They said they would come,
Okay.
so, yeah.
How was the meeting today? I'm sorry they couldn't attend.
It went really well, I think. I think there's a sense in this town that I've gotten that Rubco kind of is afraid of Western Ulster County, that they've had some bad experiences, and I think it was a really positive meeting. I will say a lot of it was focused on the Wellington project, which I mentioned last time. But we also just talked about how Shandaken being at the edge of the county is a little bit neglected. We looked at, it was a hotel, it's called the Tyrol on Elm Street in Pine Hill. It's a giant building that's currently vacant, and we talked about that as something that maybe they'd want to look at. I think there's a bunch of similar buildings throughout the town, so they're definitely have their eye on this now, which is nice.
Great.
Yeah, it was a good visit.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What kind of follow-up should we have, like, from the committee? Can we have a follow-up call with them to start relationship or continue relationship building with Shandaken?
I think it's not a bad idea to be friendly with them for sure, especially if they indicated that they're very busy, but they are obviously always looking for new projects. So, and I think they do have one building in town. I think they manage Friendship Manor. So I think it is worth it for us to at least be friendly with them. So yeah, definitely. You can talk to them at the housing fair also.
Who was the person that you met today?
Emily, I think her last name is Hamilton, who I think runs their like real estate development, and then also Kristen, I'm not gonna remember her last name, who was at Rubco. She was the like community outreach person, but she just moved to the county in economic development. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but she just left Rubco.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Have you had any experience working with Rubco?
I have not.
Have you? I haven't either. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So we can, it's just another resource for us to tap into over time. So if we're kind of these like housing thoughtful people, then at least we can think about how showing enthusiasm and energy around housing and letting them know where we're at. Like, I feel like a call would be very brief, but it would be,
I think it's
we're working on this, and
Yeah.
like we hear you, we're out here, and we're just like excited to just establish a line of communication.
Definitely. I think just to give a little more color to what I said earlier, I think some of their previous negative experiences, like a big one was in Woodstock. The town got really upset that they were trying to put in affordable housing, like sued them. There was a bunch of drama. I don't know the details. But that kind of like soured their feeling towards this area. And I just forgot what I was going to say.
Okay. Yeah, they got sued.
Yeah. So, thank you. So one of their big hurdles oftentimes in establishing new projects is getting community buy-in, where people are like, yeah, this is cool, like, go ahead. And I think I think Shandaken is a very different, just like environment, I guess, than Woodstock. And I like, no shade to Woodstock, they can do their thing. But all I'm saying is I think Shandaken can give a lot more of that like community support that I think they really need to have successful projects. I think that's something that we can offer and like make things easier for them. So I think it could be a fruitful relationship.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
I mean, I do know that Rupco has a waiting list on their affordable housing program. I heard to some extent that it was about 3 years.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's still the case, or maybe it's gotten larger.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but that sounds
That's
realistic.
and I
yeah.
know they're working on a project down in right off the Thruway in Kingston. So that's where we're at right now.
Well,
For
yeah,
people who wanting housing, or
People who
wait
want
lists,
housing,
or-
individuals.
individuals. Yeah, and it covers a myriad of people.
Right.
Yeah, something they mentioned also was that a lot of their projects at the moment are smaller buildings, which I thought was interesting. But I think it's just really hard to get a big building with a bunch of units in it. But there definitely are some larger buildings in this town that maybe would be of interest to them. So something for us to keep an eye on, I think.
Yeah. Well, and it's a reminder that like affordable housing can look like any number of things.
Yeah.
I think the unfortunate aspect of trying to increase affordable housing is also people kind of have an idea in their head of what that means and what that means for who will be living there. And so I think it's important as we're doing, this process, that we're helping to paint a picture, a diverse picture of like what affordable housing could be, what shapes, sizes, and colors it comes in, and the various people that benefit from there being affordable units in town. So that does connect to one thing that, again, is its own separate action item and which I didn't necessarily put in the agenda because I guess I'm still influenced by my first conversation with Kai, which he's like, you're going to feel like you want to instantly get on the outreach train. But like, it's not that he was discouraging having like a community outreach plan, but it is just like acknowledging as we're trying to like learn about this process that, we should be talking about our community outreach strategy. We should continue to explore the ways and channels that we can be talking to people and hearing from them. But we also want to sort of kind of control that process and how it unfolds because we want it to feel organized and strategic. And we don't want to confuse anyone. But I do think, like, last time we touched on, like, a social media presence, which I did learn. I think it didn't have to be an official learn, but I did learn that it's, like, we can do a Facebook page if we wanted to, or we can create a Facebook group if we want to, if we want it to be something where, people have to kind of, what is it? Not apply. Request to join. Thank you. Apply. Apply to Facebook.
I'm just changing the tape if you want to wait a moment.
Oh, okay, sure. Thank you. Our live feed is good. Hold it. Are you gonna go right in the same spot? Oh, hello.
Guess they're in a rush.
Okay. But community outreach and education is gonna be a thread throughout this entire experience for us. And, you know, let's say the four of us are on it this year. In 5 years, ideally this committee still exists and is active. Like, you know, we're not that we have to set ourselves up for 5 years from now, but like we can kind of create a place where people can discuss housing. It could be a message board for housing. It could be something that's not just us, you know, sharing information or asking questions, but it could be a place where housing is discussed in a more broad place. It could be, I don't know. So I think that is one area we could explore. Not that anyone of us wants to spend more time on Facebook, but we know that's where the people are at. But it's like scary. It's scary to go out and do something on social media because we know it's like a wild world
Well,
online.
it's interesting, Kai recommending to not reach out right away,
Mm-hmm.
which I think I do have the desire to be like, oh, we're in this like public facing position, like let's talk to people.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't even know what we would say right now. Like I feel like we haven't done much yet, and I personally don't feel super compelled in this moment to like start that process until we have a little more that we're trying to reach people with. But I'd be curious what everyone else thinks.
I think I think it has to evolve.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's still a little premature to do
Yeah.
something like that. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the first phase, understanding the housing crisis. And I mean, there's just so many documents for us to review.
Digest.
You know, and we're starting to do that. But I think that's one thing. But also, talking to people might also be part of understanding.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think it is. But so can we organize some kind of way for people to come and share their concerns with
Yeah.
us?
I totally agree. And part of me is like, I think we should make our like coming out party at the resource fair
Ooh, that's an idea.
That's
where it's like 2 months from now. That feels real,
Yeah.
you know, spacious. And, you know, I know we would have committed to one another the night before, but if, you know, seeing it's a 3-hour event, we don't all have to be there the whole time. But that could be an opportunity to like, in the context of housing, find people who are seeking resources for housing.
You're seeking resources and you're also getting community opinion. Okay? And I think the community opinion is extremely important.
1,000%.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where it should evolve from.
But I think it'll give us time to be in a place where we have an organized set of thoughts and initiatives, right? Where they're broad still. Like the exact way that we're going to increase housing or the exact, you know, I think we need to like still have lots of conversations and you know, I would love to say, oh, we'll just tell people to come here. But like, I think it's more likely we'll see them out in the world. So I would love if we can all try and be at that September 26th fair, even just for 1 hour, even if we're like, even if you can't stay through the whole evening. But, you know, we can discuss at our 2 meetings prior to that, like, what do we want to bring? What do we want to learn? Like, what is there like a way that we can engage with people so they actually come over to our table and talk to us? Because you can't just stand there looking pretty. You have to have like a little
And
point of entry.
you need a rapport. You need a rapport with the people. Now, my question is,
Yes.
the community fair, how is that being advertised?
Not yet at all, but
Are we gonna keep that in the closet?
no, I think the community center has a pretty extensive network, so I think it'll be primarily advertised through them, but I think the town will probably also promote it. And if you have other places you think it should go,
The farmer's market
yeah,
can
the farmers
promote
market
it.
can promote
Yeah.
it. We're connected.
What do you, are there people or groups that you think will not hear the message to come to the community center?
Absolutely.
And who
I-
are they?
I certainly think we can flyer, like, most of the post offices in the area have a pin
well-
board that people look for or post, like,
That would help.
apartments.
I mean,
Yeah,
the town website obviously helps.
Right.
Because you do have non-residents that do look at the town website on a somewhat, I'm gonna quote, regular basis. You know, it's a weekday or weekday evening. You do have non-residents. I mean, I know it's somewhat changed, because people are working remotely. How long, we don't know. But, you know, you do have these non-resident people that, I mean, certainly their input, I think, would be necessary.
yeah.
Or welcomed. I'm gonna say welcomed.
You're saying the non-resident people?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
What
They are
is-
taxpayers.
Sure. What do you,
Myself being one of them, by the way.
got it.
Although I
Yeah.
like to consider myself a resident here because I spend more time here.
No, I mean, I think the community center has an amazing track record at connecting with our vulnerable populations especially, which I know are not necessarily the non-residents, but I hear you, and I know there is an email list for the STR owners.
Right.
We don't necessarily have access to that, but other people do, and if that's an area where you know, we can get even more awareness of the event, we could let STR owners know as
How
well.
about, business groups, like
Yeah,
commercial, yeah. I mean, I think they would definitely.
have an interest.
Yeah, and
Yeah, we
filling
can-
vacancies and.
We
helping.
can, yeah, we can definitely share it with the PBA and that email list. And I mean, I think, again, community center has a great marketing team and system, and what we can do is continue to help amplify it in all these other ways and places. Because it's like we can help promote them, and then we're going to be there for our coming out of like,
Yeah.
this is who we are, and we need a little publicity boost too, because I don't know how many people know that we exist.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think we should get it on the next town board meeting, like a little announcement section, so that it can be August and September announced.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I would think Jan will be at the meeting, but
And that's a week from Monday.
that's
Yep.
coming up, yes.
Yep.
Not next
I
week,
will
the week
send an
after.
email.
Yeah. Okay, so, well, we have, I think, a reasonable goal to have some type of public interaction, which can help inform other things. Like, I definitely put out there that, like, any committee in town is welcome to come table at the farmer's market, but I know that I would love for the housing committee to have a presence one day and just do a little bit of, like, the question and answer. Like, we can be like holding the sign, like, what do you think we need for housing, better housing in our town?
A little whiteboard and people can.
Yeah, which maybe is an idea for the fair. Like, I would love a reason to bring people over to us and like learn something immediately, and then have a collection of ideas or comments that we didn't have to like do a whole survey development for. We can just have
You could
an
have
initial
all
starting
the
point.
smart actions.
Mhm.
that
Oh, like,
they've
what do you
ident-
think is
Yeah, which ones do you think?
most important?
Yeah.
Yeah.
With a little
Yeah,
description.
yeah, people can like either put a little ticket in a vessel or do a little hash mark on the whiteboard. Yeah. Cool. So we are off to a roaring start with our with our like gentle outreach, Because I think I get the sense we're all in agreement. Like, we want to get more insight from our community. We want to have community participate in the process with us when we need a lot more participation. But as it stands at this very moment, we're not like going full steam and getting a billboard truck and all that stuff. So that feels good. Okay, the one thing I did want to bring up, because there is a deadline for it, and it's not necessarily something that our town would do, but it is for property owners. It's for low to moderate income property owners. There is something called the +1 home program eligibility, and this is a RUPCO program. And I'll just read this very short line. RUPCO can help. Sorry. Blech. Start over.
That was good.
It sounded great.
I didn't even read the first line. I don't know why I started with that one, but also, well, you'll hear it. So you're looking to build a backyard cottage or separate a unit within your home. RUPCO can help. That's what RUPCO can help with. The +1 home program provides funds to assist Ulster County low to moderate income property owners with grants up to $125,000 to construct or rehab code compliant ADUs, accessory dwelling units. So these are on properties that might already be able to add another unit, whatever that means, or another structure, and they just haven't for whatever reason.
Maybe this is a dumb question, but do we have those?
We don't know, but maybe a property owner already knows that they're that. That's like the easy
I see.
one.
Okay.
So if you're out there and you fit into what I don't, okay, basically go to rupco.org/+1, all spelled out, PLUSONE. And this will also be in our meeting minutes, which will be up on the website later this week. But the Plus Home program through RUPCO, there is an application, and the deadline is September 8th. The applications have just become available, and all of the eligibility requirements are listed on the website as well as the application. There is an application criteria and scoring process that's also detailed on the website. So in the zoning category, it says ADUs must be permitted by right or through a special use permit in the zoning district where the applicant's property is located. Obviously, like right now, we have things that work around current zoning.
Right, but that would have to go through zoning.
Planning as well, right?
Within the town.
Yes.
So the timeline on that is extremely
Tight.
limited. And, basically, it can't happen.
So they put out the application on July 20th.
Right.
Which today is, the 24th?
24th.
So they put it out on Friday. And the application window closes 4 p.m. September 8th, which ends up being, less than 3 months away?
Less than a month away. Well, just over a month away.
It's like 6 weeks.
So you
Yeah.
have to have it
30,
approved.
You would have already needed to get your
7 more.
special use permit.
45 days, 46 days.
So this is someone who has plans already.
It's
that
pretty
are-
much a shovel-ready project at this point.
Yeah,
So if you're out there
if you're out there.
and you have a really nice shed that just needs a little,
Well, but, not for nothing.
Yeah.
We should,
that's serious.
I would be
money.
shocked if no one told them that's like a ridiculous timeline, but.
Well, it's full county, right? So maybe there are people closer to that in a way that it's difficult to be in this town.
But
Now,
this
I-
is, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
What is the total dollar value? We said $125,000. What is the total value collectively in this program from the county or from RUPCO?
Oh, like the full amount
The
of
full
funding? I don't, it's 125 for that, for just a single
Right.
applicant.
But it's not, obviously, if we have 1,000 of these,
Well, no, so,
when does the
oh,
well
I'm
run
sorry, that's your question.
when does the well
So,
run dry?
so it's based, I'll tell you this, geographic selection. To ensure that grant funding is distributed relatively evenly throughout the county, applicants will be divided based on their address into 4 geographic locations. The 3 to 4 top scoring applicants from each geographic area will be awarded the grants in the case of a tie randomized lottery. So like we're in with Hardenburg, Denning, Olive, Warsing, Ellenville, and Rochester. We're considered West County. But then there's the application is scored with a project narrative, a description of your project, specific needs, things pertaining to water and sewer. So yeah, you would need to be quite equipped to already be submitting this application, even on the day it's due. You would have a big project in front of you. And I mean to say that sort of in critique of this program a little bit, not that I have anything against the purpose of it is, but, this was just sent to me by Kai to share. And I think it's like worth telling him and maybe even Rupco that in a town where we only, like you would have had to do all of your special use permit stuff already, or you would have to perfectly already fit the zoning criteria. And you'll have to be an amazing writer who can put together a compelling application to compete with an unknown number of other applicants. I still encourage you to go to rupco.org/+1 to look at the full details of the program. There's even more, kind of elaboration on ADUs and the different things they can look like and be. So yeah, there's that, the +1 program. Okay.
Yeah, I was just thinking one thing that could happen at our coming out table would be to talk to more people about ADUs and the possibility and what it would take and would they be interested and,
Get people buzzing about.
yeah, so that they're ready for these kind of grants when they're released.
Yeah, I'm like trying to picture who's ready for that, but good for them if they are. 125,000 for a small.
Well, there is a criteria also, it has to, I think it's a 10-year program.
It's rents have to be kept at an affordable rate for a minimum of 10 years. It is also like you have to meet the income criteria.
Income criteria as well, correct.
Yeah, so for instance, a family of 4, the max annual income is $112,400. Household size of 1 is $78,700. Low to moderate. Family of 7. Okay. What time is it? 8:20. Okay, so we'll go through action items for members. Read Shandaken tomorrow. Thank you. There were some other action items further up. I can always copy those down too. As a reminder, the Comprehensive Planning Committee meets the second Monday. No, that's CAC. When's Comprehensive Plan? Third Mondays?
Was it last week?
Is it Wednesday or is it Monday?
That's the second Monday.
Second Monday.
Oh, CAC's third.
Third. Okay, dokie. Okay, so if anyone wants to attend or can attend, I'll email our group before the second Monday to see if anyone else wants to come. I really just like showed up at the beginning and was like, hey, we want to work with you guys. But if you're curious, but otherwise I do think we can spend our time kind of like sort of doing what they're doing, looking through what exists
So that would be on 14th.
on August
August
14th. Okay.
Which
All right.
would theoretically put the next town board meeting on the 7th, correct?
In theory, yes. Okay. Is there any other new business from anybody else? Thoughts, ideas, things you care about pertaining to this? Okay. So it's 8:21. And, oh, we need to make a motion to end the meeting. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Motion to end.
Oh.
Seconded.
Great. Thank you so much.
Great minds think alike.
It's the most important motion.
Okay. Great job, everybody.
I had other favorite action items to talk about, but kind of wait to the community outreach for our next meeting.
Yeah. I know, it's like on paper, it all feels really exciting. And it's not exciting, not on paper, but I mean, it just, but the thing that I've been running into is it is really like interwoven in some respects, so it's like, I feel like there could be like, here's these actions, but, I mean, I still think that timeline is also really, the one that you were looking at, where it was like,
Oh,
understand.
on phase one, yeah.
Now, is there anything happening down in Kingston on Friday now?
On Friday.
This coming Friday?
Like what?
You sent out an email, I
Oh,
guess it
was
was-
that, I think that, did that happen already?
the AU,
I think that happened.
that was on the 12th.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought there was something coming up this Friday though, or Thursday.
Anything this Friday.
That we discussed last time?
No, it was, you sent an email out on that one.
Well. No, oh, I think that was the option.
The,
The Rupco option.
okay,
Yeah.
right,
That was
okay.
another,
okay,
it
done,
could be this day or Friday.
okay.
Yeah. But, thank you.
All right.
Good stuff. Where do you live when you're not here?
Who, me?
Yeah.
I live in New Jersey,
What town?
Ramsey.